Genesis of Gitanjali.
Rabindranath Tagore is known to all of us for his versatile personality. He is in the midst of us through his poems, literary works, songs, philosophy, and even paintings. He gave a new dimension to Bengali literature and music and introduced India to the Western world. Author of the profoundly sensitive, fresh and beautiful verse of Gitanjali, he became the first non-European as well as the first lyricist to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1913. Gitanjali is one of the gems of Indo-Anglian literature. Let us see how Rabindranath Tagore was inspired to write Gitanjali. After settling in Shantiniketan, Rabindranath Tagore felt he had got the desired peace and the atmosphere of serenity and prayer gave him the inspiration of producing compositions of high quality. But he had a disturbed family life when he lost his wife, son and daughter in a span of just 5 years, that is 1902 to 1907. He wrote novels like Gora, Chokher Bali and Dag Ghor from 1901 to 1907. The last novel, Dag Ghor, has a philosophical flavor. Continuing with the same philosophical frame of mind, Rabindranath Tagore started penning down poems of Gitanjali, the prayer songs, an integration of two words, Geet and Anjali, meaning song and offering respectively. The literal meaning of the word is offering of songs. The strong devotional tone in the poems reflects devotion to God as its theme. He used to write poems every day and hide them. He did not want to get them published or recite to anyone. The lonesome stay in Shantiniketan inspired Rabindranath Tagore back to the worldly life. He came back to Kolkata. Gitanjali in Bengali was published in 1910 with 157 songs and poems. When the poems of Gitanjali was published, it had received lukewarm response in the Bengali literary world. Rabindranath Tagore was not surprised and he continued with the same philosophical and devotional flavor. And excerpt from his Nobel Prize acceptance speech, describing his days in Shantiniketan when he wrote Gitanjali. I was an obscure individual to most of my countrymen in those days. My name was hardly known outside my own province, but I was quite content with that obscurity, which protected me from the curiosity of crowds. And then came a time when my heart felt a longing to come out of that solitude and do some work for my fellow beings, and not merely give shape to my dreams and meditate deeply on the problems of life, but try to give expression to my ideas through some definite work, definitive service for my fellow beings. The one thing, the one work which came to my mind was to teach children. It was not because I was specially suited for this work of teaching, for I have not had myself the full benefit of a regular education. For some time I hesitated, but I felt that as I had a deep love for nature, I had naturally love for children also. My objective in starting this institution, Shanti Niketan, was to give children full freedom of joy of life and of communion with nature. I myself had suffered when I was young the impediments which were inflicted upon most boys at school, and I have had to go through the machine of education which crushes the joy and freedom of life for which children have such insatiable thirst. My objective was to give freedom and joy to children. So I had a few boys around me and I taught them and I tried to make them happy as their playmate and companion. I shared their life and I felt that I was the biggest child of the party. And we all grew up together in this atmosphere of freedom. The vigor and the joy of the children, their chats and songs filled the air with a spirit of delight, which I drank every day I was there. And in the evening, during the sunset hour, I often used to sit alone watching the trees of the shadowing avenue and the silence of the afternoon. I could hear distinctly voices of children in the air, and it seemed to me that these shouts and songs and glad voices were like those trees which come out from the heart of the earth like fountains of light towards the bosom of the infinite sky. And it symbolized, it brought before my mind the whole cry of human life, all expressions of joy and aspirations of men rising from the heart of humanity up to this sky. I knew that we also, the grown-up children, send up our cries of aspiration to the infinite. In this atmosphere, I used to write my poems, Gitanjali, and I sang them to myself at midnight under the glorious stars. In the early morning and afternoon glow of sunset, I used to write these songs till a day came when I felt impelled to come out once again and meet the heart of the large world. I could see that my coming out from the seclusion of life among these joyful children and doing my service was only a prelude to my pilgrimage to a larger world. I felt a desire to come in touch with people of the West, for I was conscious that the present age belongs to the Western man with his superabundance of energy. He has got the power of the world and his life is overflowing all boundaries and sending out its message to the great future. And I felt that I must, before I die, come to the West and meet the man of the secret shrine where the divine presence has his dwelling, his temple. And I thought that the divine man, with all his powers and aspirations of life, is dwelling in the West. And so I came out. Tagore decided to go to Europe to acquaint people with the ideals of his school at Shantiniketan, and also to learn cooperative farming in Denmark. While preparing for his Europe trip, he fell ill and went to Shilaidaho for rest. The decision to take complete rest could not stop him from reading and writing. During this time, he did not write anything new, but translated the poems of Gitanjali into English to keep himself engaged. Rabindranath had given up writing in English since his school days. In the solitude of Shilaidaho, the English language and its poetic style expressed itself. He was diffident about the translation as he wanted to faithfully preserve the emotions of the original composition in foreign language. He was also in doubt of translating the poems into poem or prose. In Shilaidah, he was free from all doubts and started translating his poems into English prose. This brought a new dimension in English literature and was outcome of his outstanding talent. But he himself did not consider it a great work. He perceived it as a childish attempt and was dissatisfied at the effort. Rabindranath Tagore expressed this to Rodenstein. My translations are frankly prose. My aim to make them simply prose with just a suggestion of rhythm to give them a touch of the lyric, avoiding all archaisms and poetical conventions. Tagore tells the story of Gitanjali in his own words in a letter to his niece Indira. You have alluded to the English translation of Gitanjali. He wrote to his niece Indira from London. I cannot imagine to this day how people came to like it so much. That I cannot write English is such a patent fact that I never had even the vanity to feel ashamed of it. If anybody wrote an English note asking me to tea, I did not feel equal to answering it. Perhaps you think that by now I have got over that delusion. By no means. That I have written in English seems to be the delusion. The only way to keep myself calm was to take up some light work. So I took up the poems of Gitanjali and set myself to translate them one by one. You may wonder why such crazy ambition should possess one in such a weak state of health. But believe me, I did not undertake the task in a spirit of reckless bravado. I simply felt an urge to recapture through the medium of another language the feelings and sentiments which had created such a feast of joy within me in the days gone by. The pages of a small exercise book came to be filled gradually, and with it in my pocket, I boarded the ship. Here is an excerpt from his Nobel Prize acceptance speech, describing when he translated Gitanjali. After my Gitanjali poems had been written in Bengali I translated those poems into English without having any desire to have them published, being diffident of my mastery of that language. But I had the manuscript with me when I came out to the West. And you know that the British public, when these poems were put before them, and those who had the opportunity of reading them in manuscript before approved of them, I was accepted, and the heart of the West opened out without delay. Pierre Fallon, S.J., has described the greatness of Tagore's works wonderfully. The Western Gitanjali loses much of the musical beauty and evocative power of the original poems. Yet it is a jewel, even a jewel of English religious poetry, with a promise that more to come on Gitanjali. I say goodbye to you all today.